Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to make an Archimedes wind turbine using the part workbench in FreeCAD. So I hope you're enjoying these videos and let's have a look how we would create this model. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/MANG0 or via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/DarrenBeStone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. So I've opened up FreeCAD. I've already started a new document, and I'm going to use the part workbench for this. So we're going to come over to the part workbench. I'm going to first create something that resembles a Fibonacci spiral. To do that, we need to come up to part, and we need to use the create primitives. We click on this, we get the options for different primitives. At the moment, it's saying plane. This is our default. If we drop this down, in here, you'll find a helix. So we click on that, and we've got our helix here. We've got these parameters in here. Now I tend to just hit create and edit the parameters from the tree view. Therefore, I can see this changing as we edit. So just hit create and let's hit close. We've got the helix in the tree view. Click on the helix. Let's come down to the data tab. In here, you'll find the pitch, the height, the radius, and the angle. I'm going to set the pitch, the height, and the radius all to the same value. So the pitch, I'm going to set to 100 millimeters. On the right, you see the spiral change. The height to 100 millimeters, and then the radius to 100 as well. Now, don't worry if it vanishes off screen. Just click on the helix, come up, and use the fit tool. We now have the helix. I need to look at this helix from the top. At the moment, I've just got a circle. If I come down to the angle and start moving this down in a minus direction by pressing the down key, you'll see at some point, let's go to about -9, we start to get this separation. So it's starting to go into a spiral from looking from the top. If I set this to -45, then we get the spiral that we need. Let's bring this around and look from the side so you can see what's happening here. Let's come up to the view and toggle axis cross. So you can see where that spiral sits, and it's right in the center of our point of origin. So we'll look from the top, we can see it sitting there. So our first stage is done. We may need to change this angle slightly if we get some offset issues. Our next stage, we need to come around to the front from this viewpoint and sketch a line going through the center. To do that, make sure nothing's selected and come over to the sketcher. This line will create an edge. The model itself only has two edges, the helix and a line. We surface between those to get the shape that we need. So let's make sure nothing's selected and create a sketch. And we're looking at the front, which if we look down here, it's the XZ plane. So we pick the XZ plane and hit OK. Now I'm going to pull in the vertex, the start and end vertex of this helix. Using the external geometry tool, I'm going to pull in this point here and this point here. So I've got 2 points. Next thing I'm going to do is create a line. So this is going to be the edge of this helix and creates the edge of the blade. The thing I don't want to do is connect up to this point. I want to keep it in alignment with this point because this point will move out here, and that's done by altering that angle of this helix. So if I sketch a line by the left hand side of this, and come down, and then go past this center point and connect up to the vertical axis. You can see I've got a point on object constraint there. So I can hover over that and drop that in as a point on object constraint. Right click or press escape to get the mouse pointer back. Remember that on the left hand side here, we've got these panels. So if you're not getting this point on object constraint, the alter constraints aren't on. To turn the alter constraints on, we need to use this drop down in the constraints. We drop this down and we find the alter constraint in there. Next, I'm going to take this top point and the point we imported from the helix and place those in horizontal alignment. So those are aligned with each other in horizontal alignment. We now take this line and place that in vertical alignment. Now remember, we need to keep these points in horizontal alignment, but not attached to each other. So we've got our edge, but we need to create an angle for this edge that goes along here. To do that, I'm going to add some construction geometry between here, which shows the edge. Use a line, come in and constrain coincident to this point and then coincident to the point we've imported from the helix. Make sure it's coincident to the point and not a point on object constraint along the horizontal axis. Right click or escape to get your mouse pointer back. And now we can select that line, come up to the top, and we want to change it to construction geometry, toggle construction geometry. Also found on sketch, sketch geometries, and toggle construction geometry. When we toggle that line to construction geometry, it will turn blue. Now we add the angle. The angle is added between the construction geometry and this line, this sketch line. Let's create the angle. And we're going to set this to 45 degrees and hit OK. We've created that angle in there. This angle can change, and you notice that this line increases in length. We're going to come back to this in a moment. Let's hit close. As you can see, we have the sketch line and our helix. We look at this from an angle, we can see what's happening. To make the blade surface, we'll use a ruled surface. Let's come over to the part workbench, and then we'll select the sketch edge, and then control select the helix, come up to the top, and click on create ruled surface, or part create ruled surface. So what we've done is we've created a ruled surface across there, and this is one part of the blade, but it needs thickening. First of all, let's have a look at this angle here, so you can see what's happened with this one. Let's come over and just edit that. So I'm going to open up the ruled surface, and inside you can see the helix and the sketch. Now the good thing is we don't have to come into the sketch and change that constraint. If I click on the sketch, if I look down in the sketch and the constraints and open this out on the data tab, you'll see we have a constraint in here of 45 degrees. So if I set this to 90 degrees, what will happen if I hit enter? We'll get this 90 degree angle on this blade. So I'm going to come in here and say set this to 50 degrees, and therefore we have this angle here. You can play with this one to get the type of angle you want. Now we've got this, we need to thicken this shape. Now one thing that we need to understand is that at the very point of this helix, we may get some issues around here. And that's why we created a constraint that was aligned to this helix from that sketch rather than a coincident constraint. Because what we can do is take the helix, come down and look at the angle, minus 45. If I set this to minus 30, without refreshing it, you can see that the point has moved out over here, that point of the helix. If I click, you notice now we get a line of that edge that goes to that point. So from our sketch point here to the point of the helix. If we look at the sketch, you can see what's happened. They're in horizontal alignment. Let's just move out. Let's close that and set this back. So we want to take the helix and set it to minus 45 and click off. We're now going to 3D offset this object by clicking on it. So we've selected the ruled surface. We use the 3D offset or use the part. Come down and you'll see 3D offset in here. The offset has taken and we need to set the fill offset as checked. Notice that we have a problem here. The offset is not filling. If I hit OK, we get no image for shape. So this is the problem we're going to encounter here. And as we said, to fix it, let's cancel that. Come into the ruled surface, come into the helix, and we're going to set the angle something like minus 42. This moves out. Click, and now we can set the offset again. So we can try setting an offset. So click on the ruled surface. I'm going to use the toolbar this time, 3D offset, and select the filled offset. That has successfully filled, and that's set this to something like 2 millimeters. So we've got that there. We can play with this edge in a moment just by changing that angle. So let's hit OK. Now we've got the offset. Inside the offset, we'll see the ruled surface. It's visible at the moment. So we've got to click on the ruled surface and press the spacebar. Otherwise, we may accidentally click on the ruled surface rather than the offset. That's hidden. Inside that, we still have the helix. And we can modify this. Let's change this to minus 43 and hit enter. And we can see that moving inwards. Minus 45, it goes into error. So this is going to be something like minus 44.5, but we'll leave it as minus 44. So now we've got our first blade. I'm just going to take the helix and the sketch, shift select both of those, and press the spacebar just to hide them. This is just to show what we have on screen. And we can see what's happened there. And we can have a look at our edges and see that we're all good and ready for the next stage. Now at this point, we're going to array this, but we may want to add some chamfers or some fillets just to neaten this up. For instance, I may want to take this edge here and add a fillet bond there. So click the fillet, and we'll set the fillet to something like 5 millimeters and hit enter. Just to clean that up a bit. If you want to go further, we just double click, and I'm going to set it to something like 10. So we've got that there. Now we've got our blade, let's array it. For that, I'm going to come over to the draft workbench. And now in the draft workbench, I don't need my gridding, so I'm going to come down and click on the gridding. I don't need that. And I'm going to make sure that the fillet is selected. So that's the last operation we did. If you didn't have any fillets on there, it will be the offset. The fillet selected, come to modifications, array tools, and polar array. We get our options on the left hand side here, and the number of elements that I want is 3. So for 3 blades, and I want to reset the center of rotation. So if I reset that, that sets that all to 0. The minute I come off of this, you'll see it changes. So just hit reset. And also we want to select the fuse because we're going to be doing some Boolean operations with this. Let's come up and hit OK. FreeCAD will work on the object and create the end result. So now we've got this, we just need to add a shaft in here for it to sit on. Now I could come in and say, add just a basic circle in here and extrude it. Or I could actually come in and find in the fillet, in the offset, in the ruled surface, we've got this sketch here, which I'm going to press the space bar just to show it. So showing that sketch. So in here now, if I hover over that sketch, you'll see in yellow, we've got a sketch in there. That's showing. So if I want to create a shaft across here, I could use this as a path to extrude that shaft along. Let's come back over to the Sketcher workbench. I'm going to come round and I'm looking at the top. Make sure nothing's selected. Create a new sketch along the XY plane, which is this one here, and hit OK. So now I've got our object in front of us. I'm going to use the section view, sketch, view section. So it's section through the object. Click on top, and now I'm going to add a circle, like so. I'm going to right click and set the radius of this circle, or the diameter, whichever one you want. Let's pick diameter. I'm going to set this to 15 millimeters and hit OK. So we've got the circle in there. That's close. Now our sketch, this one here, as you can see there, is in the middle of this object. So I can extrude this in both directions. I could say move it down here and extrude it, but also I could use this sketch in here as a path to extrude that along. For instance, I could use, say, a pipe. So let's come back to the part and make sure nothing is selected and use the sweep, which is also a pipe, part, sweep. We need the profile. So if we click on these, you can see, well, that's not the profile. Let's click on the other one and you can see that in there is the profile highlighted in green. Move that across. And now I need to select the path. So sweep path. Now, unfortunately, it's nested. So that's come over to done for the time being and come back to the model and hide the array. So this array here, I'm going to press the space bar on that. So now I see just the sketches that I need. Let's come back to the tasks. So we've got the sketch 001 in here, which is this one. So you can see that in the bottom left, unnamed sketch 001. And now if we go sweep path, it's going to ask us for the path. I'm going to select this line of the sketch and hit done. Looks like nothing's happened. If I hit OK, we've swept that along there. At the moment, it's still surface. So we click on it, sweeps there, come down. Solid at the moment is false. Just drop this down and set that to true. Click off. Now that's in there. Don't need this sketch anymore. This one here. I can press the spacebar on that. And also this sketch here, I can do the same. Press the spacebar on that. The array of the blades at the top here is still hidden. So we just need to press the spacebar to show that. So we've got the blades and we've got our, let's say, spindle that's sitting there. We can now join these two together. by taking the array. Now, if you look on the left-hand side, if we select it from the screen, you can see the fillet has been selected. We don't want that. We need to select the array from the left-hand side. Now, control-click the sweep. Let's do it from the tree view. This makes it easy and less prone to mistake. So I've control selected those. We come up to the top here and use the union, or part, Boolean, and union. It has vanished from the screen. You can see we've got a check on the fusion. So what we need to do is make sure the fusion is selected. We've still got a tick on the fusion. So let's just hit refresh. And it's come back after the recalculation. And we've got our Archimedes wind turbine all complete. Remember, we can change this at any time. So for instance, come into the fusion, come into the array, into the fillet, into the offset, into the ruled surface to get to the original objects. And we've got the helix here, which we can change the pitch of and the angle. Let's say minus 40 and hit enter. This will all recompute. And you can see that's recomputed in there. And our model has changed. Same with the angle of these blades. We can come into the sketch and change this angle. So at the moment it's saying 50 here. I can come in and change this to say 60. Enter. Close. The model will recompute and we have our finished wind turbine. So that's how to make an Archimedes wind turbine. Hope you enjoyed that video and I hope to see you again in the new one. If you like what you see and you want to donate to the channel, then you can do so via Ko-Fi or Ko-Fi at ko-fi.com/MANG0 or via PayPal at paypal.com/paypalme/DarrenBEstone. I also run a Patreon where you can get early access and additional content, and that's at patreon.com/MangoJellySolutions. Links can be found in the channel header, on the About page, or in the descriptions of these videos. I thank everybody that's donated so far. It really helps to keep the lights on so I can produce more content and also expand the channel. Thank you for liking, commenting and subscribing to these videos, and I hope to see you again in the next one.